The following podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the speakers are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect those of their employers.
Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days bring in another moon. But oh, methinks how slow this old moon wanes.
Welcome back to Each Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. I am your host, Jasmine Garcia. We are continuing our discussion of Worlds Elsewhere Theatre Company's production of Midsummer Night's Dream. And here are my guests.
I'm just living in the wall of IER now. Like, this is my home now.
Well, Sam said she was living in the wall, so I guess that should be my cue. I am Grady Smithy. I played the wall in the production of Midsummer that we're talking about, so...
I am Hannah. I played the unnamed fairy who sang the little ditty at the end of WETC'S production of Midsummer Night's Dream.
And also fangirled hard over Puck.
Oh, yes.
Like, while I was watching this, I was like, oh my god, you were playing this so fangirly, and I love when I was revisiting it. I was telling the others with the last recording, it was so funny watching it again 3 years later, because I hadn't really revisited since, as I missed the Twitch stream. It's just like, oh my god, all these people who've become so important to me.
It still baffles me that you were not there, because I swear my memory implanted you there. I said that before, I'll say it again.
And I still take that as a compliment, honestly. But nope, I was not in this particular production that happened 3 years ago.
Egads.
How did that even happen?
I don't know. I'm telling you, COVID did something to time. COVID did something to our sense of time.
It's called long
definitely.
COVID, and it's why you need to still be wearing masks and washing your hands and staying 6 feet apart. It's not Jover. Don't let anybody tell you it is.
Alright, but on a lighter note, on the subject of Midsummer Night's Dream, let's start with our usual question. What is everyone's connection to A Midsummer Night's Dream, both before, during, and even after this production?
Well, you kind of got the backstory from me last time. Like you, I had that picture book that was absolutely freaking gorgeous. I think I got that when I was like 6 or 7, maybe 8. But then my school had us read Midsummer as our first Shakespeare in 8th grade, and that was fun. They'd have us read it out loud in class. They'd have us do vocabulary exercises where we had to rewrite the scene using words from our current vocabulary unit. So that was fun. And then I never got to do Midsummer, but I really fucking enjoy the play so much. I will watch it in basically any form it comes on in.
Definitely ditto.
For me, I also read Midsummer Night's Dream in 8th grade. It wasn't my first Shakespeare, which makes me sound very intelligent, like, oh, it wasn't my first interaction with Shakespeare. But it is definitely, it's one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. We looked at it through an academic context. We also had a group of people come to our middle school and do, not a full-scale production, but select scenes from the show. And then as part of, it was some Shakespeare night that we did at the school. I was in a scene and I got to play Bottom, and it's the scene when he turns into an ass. And I don't know how little baby 8th grade Hannah pulled that off, but she did. Again, I've always loved it. It sounds cheesy to say, but it's just an enchanting Shakespeare play. The language in it is beautiful, the premise is fun. There are so many different directions you can take it in, and it's really, I think it's one of Shakespeare's best, for sure.
Which is so funny, because we were talking about it with the last recording. It was probably one of his first as well, so... Just right out the gate.
It appears early in the folio, doesn't it?
Yeah, like right out the gate with bangers like Romeo and Juliet and Midsummer. Like, damn. But it's so funny you mentioned like your little 13-year-old baby self playing Bottom, because it just reminded me. Does anybody in this call remember the show Anne of Green Gables, the PBS show?
The animated
Yes.
one?
Yeah.
Yes! Yes, I remember.
Do you remember there was a Midsummer episode where like her guy friend played Bottom, and it is the first time they actually left in the "they won't make an ass out of me" line in there. So I'm just like, oh my goodness, because this was after I had been introduced to it. I was just like, you know what? I respect you for this, PBS.
Editor Jasmine here. So I did further research on this episode. It turns out this was episode 11 of the animated series. It's called The Ice Cream Promise, and it actually centers around Anne trying to find a Shakespeare scene to perform for her adopted mother's book club. So there's actually quite a few references to Shakespeare in this episode, and her buddy Gilbert is the one who's doing the Midsummer scene and dealing with stage fright. Cute little episode. I felt a lot of nostalgia finding it, because it is all up on YouTube. Pretty much every episode is on YouTube, actually. So, I mean, if you have young kids and want to start talking about Shakespeare with them, I mean, I've heard of worse ways to introduce Shakespeare to kids.
With great pleasure, I introduce Gilbert Blythe's dramatization from A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Now, remember what to do if you forget your lines. I will. I see their knavery. This is to make an ass out of me.
And now back to the podcast.
If anything, I respect them more the older I get.
Oh, absolutely.
For most of my life, this was a show that I had seen bits and pieces of it. I was vaguely aware of its existence. I had never actually seen it all the way through. My first real connection to it was the issue of Sandman, where Shakespeare and his players are performing.
That's a good one.
And that was the sad and nerd thing as it is. That was the one that made me think, okay, I really should watch this at some point. And then the first production that I saw all the way through was the one that we were in.
Oh, that's delightful, but oh my god,
And what a production.
Yep, what a production indeed. Just the one that kind of brought so many people together. And you know what? It's funny you mentioned the Sandman version, because I remember I used to be very upset they didn't adapt it for the show, but now that the strike has happened, I'm actually almost relieved, because that means technically we could still talk about it. Mm-hmm. So we heard a bit from Sam's experience, like I said, so I'd love to hear, Hannah, Grady, your experiences with how the production came together, what kind of character building you did with your own, because we had Regina and Emily Clark here, so they had some of the, I guess, meatier roles, but I always find, especially for myself, whenever I play a role that people would very wrongly call small roles, I always find them the most fun, because you could do a lot more with it. So I'd love to hear a bit about that.
For me, I saw Kyle's original tweet about maybe throwing something together, and like we said, it was in 2020. It was, for me, not quite the darkest days of the pandemic, but close to it, and I was struggling a lot, and I don't know what possessed me, but I said to myself, you know what, my middle school and high school theater experience is going to be enough. I'll message the man. And then I did, and then I had an audition. I was floored. I mean, I hadn't done any acting since high school. It was a part of me that I loved, but that I had lost a lot of confidence in myself over the years, so I just didn't do it. And then in terms of character building, again, we talk about small parts, and there's that old adage something
Adage?
like that.
I'm not sure.
Adage.
Either way.
Adage. It's adage.
Thank you, Sam. But that there are no small parts, only small actors. And so I really decided to take my time with the tech, because, like, my character, doesn't even have a name. She's the unnamed kind of singing fairy. And we were talking about the fangirl interpretation of it, and I decided to just kind of take that and run with it. And that freedom made it a really, really nice experience to be able to play.
And it was a lot of fun watching you and Hillary as watching your respective bosses just duke it out. It's just nobody wants to watch their boss fight with their ex.
No.
Well,
Not even their ex. Like, they never actually break up.
That is true.
They're in an open marriage.
Yeah, true. It's just that they're having a rocky point in their lives right now. Which, yeah, because, why would fairies want to stick with monogamy? That's a human invention.
For me, I saw Kyle's tweet, and I thought, I have to try to be a part of this. And during my audition, I got the second best piece of direction that I've ever gotten from Kyle. I was reading Ford's monologue right after he has posed as his own worst enemy to go meet with Falstaff and tell Falstaff, I will pay you money if you will sleep with Ford's wife to prove that his wife is unfaithful, because Ford is thinking, this is the way that I will finally get my friends to stop laughing at me and accept that I am not crazy. And as soon as he has walked out of the room from offering Falstaff money to cuckold him, he's complaining about, how dare this man take my money to sleep with my wife? What the hell? What is wrong with you, Falstaff? I am perfectly in the right for this. And when I was younger, I used to play parts very badly, and I had been trying to do more, not quite so chewing the scenery, just trying to find some little subtle stuff. And after I'd done my monologue the first time, Kyle said, okay, why did you choose that? And I said it was because of the mixture of self-righteousness and dumbassedness. And he's like, all right, I'd like you to do it a second time, but this time do it as Alex Jones.
Oh! He comes up with some crazy stuff during auditions.
Oh yeah, he and David were laughing so hard that I was amazed that neither of them fell out of their chairs. And when I was done screaming the last line out of it, Kyle looked at me and said, "You're in this. I don't know what you're playing, but you're in this."
That's wonderful.
To kind of go into future productions, because we talked a little bit about Liz Estrada in the last recording, I had a very similar experience. I mean, he didn't quite say that. He didn't go that far, because, I mean, he wasn't the one directing Liz Estrada anyway. But basically, after I had done the I Left No Ring with Her monologue, he had me read the Wool monologue, but he wanted me to read it as a YouTuber. And he also did laugh quite a bit. It's just like, excellent, like, comment, and subscribe. And to me, I was just like, oh my god, I might actually have a chance at this, because he would know. He would know, right?
Yeah, anytime I made him even chuckle a little bit, it felt like, oh my god, because I was a big fan of his YouTube videos and his YouTube essays, and still am. But
absolutely.
So that kind of positive reinforcement meant everything to me.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly how you feel. I felt similarly with The Space Between, which, in fairness, did not have a whole lot of laughs, of course, but...
My brain is mush, so I can't even remember my auditions. I always go into auditions and then kind of come out being like, I think that went okay, and then I can't remember anything. Like, the most recent audition I did, I won't say what it was for, but I made the mistake of going out to have dinner beforehand, and I was like, whatever, I'll have a drink. And I had a drink, and so the drink was just hitting me when I got to the audition. But the thing is, I think I made some fucking brilliant choices while I was inebriated, because I was doing Portia's I Pray You Tarry monologue from Merchant of Venice, and I played it horny, which I'd never done before.
You know
but
what? I kind of love that.
The sexual frustration, like, gave me this kinetic energy. The moral of the story is don't drink when you're going to an audition, but definitely have a drink when you're practicing for auditions, because lower your inhibitions and you might find something you didn't realize you needed.
You know what? I can rock with that. That is actually very solid advice, because one of the hardest things as an actor, I feel like, is kind of just not getting so caught up in your head, just figuring out, okay, what would be the best thing for this particular part of the show. So that's a fair point. Like, I feel like releasing those inhibitions probably could be useful. So pretty much every time I am not in the show but able to go into the talk back, I always ask this: any fun memories you'd like to share, since we're on the subject?
Besides Harry falling asleep.
Again, I'm genuinely shocked that didn't happen more.
We love him so much. All the best wishes to him as he's doing Winnie the Pooh in the UK.
Good for him.
The running gag of Theseus constantly checking his phone.
Like, oh gosh, yes, I do remember that. And as soon as guys said that he was channeling Tony Stark, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that didn't occur to me sooner.
When did you come up with the idea for Wall?
I was just about to
if we didn't find out about that until Tech Week, or like, did you tell
You had
Kyle
no
that you were doing it
idea.
beforehand?
Because I did it in the space between my last scene as Snout and when we did the show within a show. I told no one. And I made
When did you come up with that?
Back because I'm thinking, all right, this is somebody who is really enthusiastic and also really dumb. Just to make sure that people get that this sheet of cardboard hung around my face is a wall. I'm going to write the word wall. So he looks in the mirror and he writes it backwards, because that's how it happens when you're writing things that look forwards in the mirror. And I actually had to do a couple of practice runs to make sure that it was going to be backwards on camera, because I had to check my camera settings. I dress rehearsed that word being on my forehead more aggressively than I have dress rehearsed some. But yeah, just I was like, what would be something that would be a perfectly reasonable idea that is also one of the dumbest damn things ever. And I was hoping that I would get a good laugh, and my fond memory there is the looks on the faces of everyone that was looking at their screens, thinking, did he actually do what it looks like he just did?
I might have to go back and watch the footage again, but I think that might have been the moment when I was taking a drink and I saw you and I laughed so hard that my drink almost came out of my nose. So,
Oh, thank you.
That sounds about right. And it does kind of make sense because your character is the one that literally monologues to explain that he's the wall.
Yes.
So it makes perfect sense that he would really want to hammer it in.
Oh, yes. Just in case anyone's confused, the lion, which I loved that moment, and I will be eternally grateful for the fact that I am not on camera when Jake comes out as the moon, because every time... am I going to be completely destroyed by what he is doing? It's which exact moment is going to be the point where I have to make sure that my mic is muted because I'm laughing so hard. Usually it was the dog.
I kind of wish that I'd been given a chance to sit in on those rehearsals that you guys had, because I had my little clipboard so I could hide the fact that I was laughing, because Philosophy is like the one character who shouldn't be laughing.
Yeah, brilliant acting choice, honestly. Like, I could see...
I would have liked the chance to go method and watch you guys do all this and be like, oh shit, what a train wreck. But even then, I still wouldn't have been safe because we weren't expecting the fucking wall! Nobody expects the wall!
No one. Worth it.
That's amazing. And, that's the beauty of it, though. That's the kind of freedom you do have.
When you're one of the quote-unquote smaller roles, the audience might not remember your name, but
they will remember that fucking wall.
Yep. And that was one that just occurred to me like 5 seconds before I did it. I was like, nah, let's see how it works. And thankfully it did.
That is one of the things I love about doing Zoom theater, because, I mean, Sam, you've seen it. I will literally just randomly notice stuff around me and just be like, ooh, that could work. And just kind of yoink it.
I mean, it's so fun to find something. Like, I'm still not over when we figured out during rehearsals for The Roaring Girl that we could have Langston's wig actually be snatched.
Yes.
That was
the beauty
phenomenal.
Of modern reinterpretation. Well, I mean, I think a highlight, I know for me, but I think for all of us, was Harry falling asleep in rehearsal.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just everyone like, is he? Oh, he is. He is. But I also loved just the little bits and pieces of the show coming together, because it was the first Worlds Elsewhere show, and at least for me, I hadn't really done any virtual theater before, and the kind of technical aspects of it were one thing, but getting able to connect with everybody and, see where everyone was coming from, because there were professional actors involved, there were professional theater people, and then there were people like me. And Henry, I know, is a high school English teacher, I believe. And so it was people from all these different walks of life, all different states, all different countries, all coming together for this one endeavor. So I think the actual rehearsal process itself was my favorite moment.
There's something very special about WETC'S rehearsals.
Now that I think of it, wasn't there one part where somebody started eating popcorn on camera?
That was hilarious.
Started eating
popcorn. Hillary
Thank
started
you.
eating popcorn, yeah.
Great
that
moment.
Was one of my...
And
that is still my favorite part of the whole thing.
And James, oh my god, remember when James, picked up a glass and was drinking, and the glass would disappear because of the green screen Zoom backgrounds?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that just made them seem even more fairy-like.
Absolutely.
Same thing with Hillary's horns, I feel like.
It
added an ethereal vibe to it.
James just made so many great choices, I think, in that interpretation of Oberon. I think that so often Oberon can be this kind of hyper-masculine, macho fairy, but James
it's
just
a valid
kind of
interpretation, but...
Yeah, but I love the way that James just kind of said, I'm going to do me, but as Oberon, and it worked. He was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do remember when I first met him in Lysistrata rehearsals, I didn't even recognize him because, he didn't have gorgeous makeup.
Yeah, now that I'm remembering it, he was my not scene partner, but they had said, for people who might be a little uncomfortable with the Shakespearean language, we have more experienced actors who will help you, and he was
Shakespeare buddies.
He was my Shakespeare buddy. So that first chunk of text that I have in my scene, a lot of my interpretations and a lot of my delivery was all him.
I love the idea of the Shakespeare buddies. We definitely need more productions that do that, I feel like, because Shakespeare is accessible, but you need to have people who are willing to help you access it.
It's invaluable.
Because, you know, too much of it, Shakespeare gets treated as homework, whether it's the fact that we're introduced to it in school and it's presented as this stuffy highbrow thing. And then if you're not properly exposed to it, you start believing the fake hype and like, no, this guy was writing plays for the lower classes between like 2 brothels and a tavern.
And a bear pit.
Exactly. This was the popcorn movie before popcorn and movies were invented.
God,
Dickens
and
fart jokes.
I'm not saying I would want Shakespeare to live in this day and age, but I'm now trying to imagine what Shakespeare's version of Between a Dildo Shop and a Crematorium would have been like. I should get on that.
Shakespeare would have some things. Shakespeare would definitely have interesting interpretations of modern day, I feel like.
Absolutely.
Like just
I feel
taking
like,
the absolute piss.
Yes. I feel like not even more emphasis, but one of the best ways to access Shakespeare's text, even instead of watching a production, is doing a production of it yourself. Because when you're given these lines to say, you have to unpack them. And you have to take apart the language to understand what's being said. We actually, when I was in high school, we read, and I use read in quotes, The Importance of Being Earnest, which is a hysterically funny show. But we didn't read any scenes kind of traditionally the way that you would in a classroom. We acted everything out. So we were all assigned parts. I was Gwendolyn, and, you know, this person was Jack, and this person was Algernon, all these people, and we would act the scene, and then we would stop and talk about it, and then say, okay, is there anything you maybe want to change going back? And it was one of my favorite ways I ever learned a text in school. And I was, you know, I was an ELA nerd, I'll admit it, but that was, it remains one of my most favorite interactions with a text in school, because it made it fun, and it made it tangible. Like, here are these, you know, goofy kids that we see in the hall every day, and all of a sudden here they are saying, you know, oh, we live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. And you're like, wow, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, the only problem is you really do need to have people who want to be reading it, or at the very least want to have fun with it. Because I have definitely... Because I was also an ELA nerd, having to sit through people who clearly did not like reading out loud. Obviously, as I've gotten older, I've gotten less snobbish about it. Obviously, there are a myriad of reasons why people might not be comfortable reading out loud. With that said, my God, it was a slog to get through. It's just like, you are reading some of the most beautiful poetry ever written, and you are acting like you're about to fall asleep. Please
because
stop.
Again, they don't know what it means. They see
Exactly.
all the thous and the thys, and it's like, goose.
Yeah.
One of, I would argue, the biggest problems with people connecting to Shakespeare is people who think you have to be slavishly bound by the iambic pentameter, which leads to everyone reading every single play as da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, for me, the first step is get rid of the meter altogether, make it flow for you. Figure out where you will be rising and falling. Just wrap entire lines together if you need be. Ignore the way the words are grouped on the page. Find the way that you can group them in your mind and in your heart, and people will get it if you do it that way.
Absolutely.
If all there
And
was
Sam
to Shakespeare was
Go ahead.
iambic pentameter, then he wouldn't be around all these years
Exactly.
later.
Editor Jasmine here. Unfortunately, this is around the time where Riverside decided to kick Grady out for no apparent reason. None of us noticed at the time. We could still hear him, but for whatever reason, Riverside stopped recording him. So unfortunately, this is the last you hear of him.
It definitely does make me mad, because
Want to know what the first Shakespeare play my best friend Callie...
first Shakespeare play they learned in school was?
Oh no.
Little Julius Caesar.
Ugh.
That's
No.
the first one?
That was the first one. And their teacher just basically treated it as just this boring, lofty, among the important literature. And that is the wrong way to approach it.
Absolutely have to start with a play that has a dick joke in the opening. That's how you get the kids interested.
You're
Yeah,
so
draw
right.
him in with a dick joke. Oh.
I mean, at least
See,
they
I
started
never read Julius Caesar. We had a choice in 8th grade whether you read Julius Caesar or Les Miserables, and
Oh,
two guesses which book I picked.
yeah.
Why would you pick Les Mis? It's so much bigger.
Because theater nerd. Like I said, I was a snob academic kid, so I didn't really get why people didn't rock with Shakespeare, but now that I ate several slices of humble pie and realized, oh yeah, being the best at academia does not necessarily guarantee a great life. I mean, God bless my 10th grade and 12th grade English teacher, Miss Nistler. She was great.
I'll raise a glass to John Minigan, my high school Shakespeare teacher, who made sure we did one every year, or one every other year, sorry, but he taught a full year-long course of Shakespeare. I had a blast with that.
That is amazing. Yeah. It's interesting how you mentioned how acting it out is definitely one of the best ways to connect with it. Because, I mean, I'll probably talk more about this when we eventually do a Hamlet. But,
oh, yes.
Basically, she had me go out of the classroom. And while they're describing how Hamlet is behaving when he's pretending to be mad, or is he? You know how it is. Had me walk in and act it out to one of my classmates while they're describing it. It was fun, because she knew I was a theater kid. She knew that I would have fun with that. So bless her for that. So,
dear Lord.
I mean, I'm lucky I didn't get bullied for it, but hey.
I mean, when I was doing that year-long Shakespeare class, we were reading Henry IV Part 2 in class, and I was reading Prince Hal, and there was this big dramatic scene, and there was a line that was something about him falling down prostrate. I dropped an R, and everybody lost their fucking shit.
Oh my god. Yes. That's glorious. Oh my god. You know, it would not surprise me if some actors from back then had managed to make that mistake and the groundlings lost it. I love that idea.
Did they even know what a prostate was back then?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
They might have.
I don't know.
Yeah, who cares? It was all in good fun.
It was. Yeah. That's amazing. Oh god, Shakespeare.
Billy Shakes.
Billy Shakes. Because that's another thing I learned from Mr. Minigan.
Yes.
There are so many different spellings of Shakespeare. I like the one where it's S-H-A-X.
Editor Jasmine here again. This is around the time Hannah brought out her Shakespeare bust, so that's what we're all referring to.
Aww, he's joining us.
He's joining us.
Hannah, I might need that for you when I pitch to Worlds Elsewhere a stage reading of my play.
Ooh. I shall hold him aloft.
Yeah, it'll be a return to the Corinthian for you.
Yeah.
The Lysistrata Corinthian, not the creepy Neil Gaiman Corinthian.
Thank you.
Listen,
wow.
Listen. Is he creepy and horrible? Yes. But I still love him. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of going into just how much fun we have had with Shakespeare in the past, so I would love to hear from you. What is it about Midsummer that endures? I know you kind of delved into it, Hannah, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about accessibility, too. Mm-hmm. It's a fun, accessible text, especially for people who may be reading it in middle school or high school. Mm-hmm. There's the love story, there's this, there's that, and the other thing. But I think that if we may get a little more analytical,
Please do.
About those kinds of passing magical moments in life that you capture a little bit. And when Puck gives that speech at the end, it's saying, hey, we're coming to the end of this now, but it happened. And, you should give thanks for that. Give thanks for the beauty, even if it passes by just momentarily.
Editor Jazz here one more time. Unfortunately, this is also where we lost Sam. So then there were two. Something about this episode, Riverside just was not in favor of this episode. Oh well.
I think it endures because of that. It touches that little, not quite melancholy, but that feeling that you get when you kind of look back on moments past and you take them out of the drawer and you say, oh, what a beautiful, fun time that was.
That is so interesting to think about, especially considering by the end of it, all the humans are just kind of like, what the fuck happened last night? And I'm sure as they move on in their lives, they're probably going to think about that night after and just be all, yeah, that was something.
That was strange.
Not obviously.
Yeah. But again, you
they'll
think about it,
Yeah. And, eventually everything worked out, so they'll probably look on it fondly.
Right.
That is a fair point. I wouldn't have thought of that, but you're right. But yeah, any final thoughts?
Go act and go enjoy life, and don't be afraid of Shakespeare. He's a good man. There's a lot of fun in his catalog, a lot of sadness, a lot of romance, a lot of all the things that make great literature great. And be good to each other and pay your taxes.
Yeah, one of the best things about Shakespeare, I feel like, is it is so much more flexible than people make it out to be. Just by the nature of, we are, in fact, in an era where you don't have to have an all-male cast, although I have seen some monoproductions try that out, and of course, your mileage may vary, but some have yielded excellent results from what I have heard, but we are not married to how they did it back then. Partially because we don't even really know for sure. Like, we just know what evidence we've got. And you don't have to be married to the old ways of doing it. You can set it on Zoom. And your production does not really have a time or place. Like, yes, obviously it's Athens and you have the Greek photos there, but you were allowed to just kind of dress modern because, we just kind of had to throw it together. And that worked. And the high school production that I saw was set in the 60s, and that very much worked. It's just, you can do so much with Shakespeare. You can, like Kyle said it best in his anonymous video, I think, you can mold Shakespeare to be whatever you feel fits you.
There's a universality to his works that is incredible, and I think that's too is one of the reasons that his plays have lasted for so long, because they are set in specific times and places, but we think about modern interpretations, we think of West Side Story, and even TV shows. We call certain TV shows Shakespearean because we've seen all of this before and we will see it all again, almost like a tale as old as time.
We have not done a Beauty and the Beast yet. But I mean, to be honest,
wait.
Yes, it's funny. At one point, I debated calling this like Tales as Old as Time, but I realized no, people are going to think it's all Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
I could, and like you could do that. You definitely probably could just focus on Beauty and the Beast retellings, but I feel like that would be even more niche than this thing already is. Who's got stuff to plug? You know what? We're plugging this again. Support the strike. If you can, donate to the Creators Fund. Because the studios are cowards
and writers
greedy.
Deserve a livable wage.
Yes. And AI is not the future.
No, it is not. I know that you probably can't see it because it's a podcast, but the Billy Shakes bust is staring very menacingly into the camera. If you don't support the writer's strike, you are offending the spirit of William Shakespeare.
Yes, respect William Shakespeare's spirit.
Even if he has made us cry numerous times, either from actual tears or laughter. But that's what he's supposed to do. Art's supposed to make you feel things. And I think that was a perfect note to end it on.
And as always, you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok under Faye Riviera. You can also follow this podcast on Twitter at IER Podcast.
Next week, we are taking a little break to do an outtake special.
Hope to see you there, and remember, stories gain power in each retelling.
If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream, gentles, do not reprehend, and if you pardon, we will mend. And as I am an honest puck, if we have unearned luck, now to scape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long, else the puck a liar call. So good night until you all. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin just restore amends.